There's a specific feeling that the original theme hospital had, a hospital you could read at a glance, absurd illnesses, and the satisfaction of getting patients out the door cured. You occasionally wonder if anything modern has actually replicated it. 2 games have since tried, and this video is about whether either of them gets there. Theme Hospital is the classic 1997 game from Bullfrog Productions. If you were gaming on PC in the late 90s, there's a good chance you still bring it up. 2 came after it. 2 Point Hospital, about 2 decades on, and Galacticare in 2024. Both are trying to answer the same question. Both are worth a proper look. The pitch was simple, you run a hospital, but Bullfrog made that feel like a privilege, genuinely challenging, and the kind of game that had you properly invested before you had decided to be. You could see problems developing before they became crises, a queue forming at the wrong room, a doctor about to be overloaded, and solving them felt earned rather than reactive. The humour was genuinely funny in the dry, British way that aged better than it had any right to do. And the session structure was natural. Each level was a new hospital with new challenges. You either got it right and progressed, or you collapsed under the weight of excessive debt, mounting deaths, or occasionally both. The illnesses were also absurd. The satisfaction of treating them efficiently was not. There was a real skill in reading the hospital's state and responding correctly, not through menus or guides, but through the visual readout of the system you'd built. When it worked, you knew why, and when it failed, you knew why too. It expected you to read a situation and respond to it without much instruction. For the kind of PC game this channel is for, someone who grew up on games that treated them as a capable adult, that was not a design flaw. That was the entire appeal. The question is whether any of that holds up when you actually go back to it now. The honest answer? Better than I expected. The graphics are dated, obviously they're from 1997. The character pathfinding occasionally goes wrong, a staff member takes a scenic route at precisely the wrong moment, but the core is intact. The satisfaction of a hospital running capacity, every room filling its function, every queue moving, that is all still there. The interface caveat is real, but narrower than people tend to assume. Some menus, like saving or adjusting game speed, all live at the top of the screen and involve the same flickering selection you'll remember from the era. Clunky rather than broken. The bottom bar controls are fine, just dated graphics and less information rich than you'd get from a modern equivalent. And the DOSBox wrapper is what makes it run at all. The only thing to remember is Alt-Enter for full screen. After that, it mostly stays out of the way. GOG has made this more accessible than it has any right to be. Download, install, and you're running within minutes. The barrier that used to exist, finding a copy, getting it to run and fighting compatibility, is all mostly gone. In short, the original still holds. And if you've not played it, definitely go and get it. The thing that those which followed are building from is worth seeing in its original form, not just as context, but as a game that still functions as one. 2 answers came. 2 Point Hospital first, about 2 decades on. The first question is whether the feeling survived the journey. It did. The same loop, build and run a hospital, treat absurd illnesses, solve problems before they cascade. The same humour, the same visual language of a system in motion that tells you at a glance whether you're winning or losing. The illnesses are the clearest sign of what the game is. For example, there's a clown cure, the treatment being a machine that strips away all humour by making the patient miserable and depressed, until that misery finally breaks them free of the persona entirely. That is a very specific kind of joke, and it lands exactly as it should, and it's not an accident. The game knows what it's doing. What 2 Point Hospital has removed is everything you might now grumble about in the original. The interface is much cleaner and usable, and staff pathfinding works almost 100% of the time. That said, the visual state of the hospital still tells you most of what you need to know, without hunting through menus to find it. When something is wrong, you can usually see it, which is exactly what the original promised and only occasionally failed to deliver. There is now a hospital radio DJ. They're mildly irritating at times, but it's not something that will make you quit. One structural difference from the original that is worth knowing about is that 2 Point Hospital does not push you off hospital when you are done with it. While you can move on to the next challenge when you want to, you can also return to a previous hospital later, whether to install newer treatment rooms you've since unlocked, or to finish off the star objectives you left behind. The progression is yours to manage. The game is not running a tab on you. That changes how late game wait works here. So when a hospital starts tipping from problem solving into maintenance, and some of the larger ones do, you can leave provided you've hit the targets, start a new hospital, or come back to an old one when you feel like it. The game's answer to late game wait is to give you the choice. Sidestep it and move on, or stay with the hospital you were genuinely proud of and keep building it out. Neither is forced on you. Each new hospital you move to is still a fresh, contained challenge. Different layout, different mix of illnesses, different objectives. The early game of each is directive. You know what you're building toward, and the complexity arrives in layers rather than all at once. Now, 2 Point Hospital is not the only answer. The other one arrived in 2024. The difference here is the setting. Your patients are aliens, some humans, but the illnesses are all space-themed, some absurd, and some tied to the specific hospital or story you're running. And all of them are in the same tradition as Bloaty Head and the Clown Cure. Structurally, the game sits closer to Theme Hospital than 2 Point does. Each hospital is a contained challenge, complete it, and move on. You can return to previous hospitals to fine-tune them, but the game feels geared much more towards advancement, so returning is possible, though it feels like it sits on the edges of the mechanic rather than at the centre. What it has that the other two do not is a story arc that runs through the campaign, light enough to mostly stay out of the way, but present enough to give the progression a shape. It pays off in final missions that tie things together. The story, though, is not the main event. The hospitals are, but it is there, and it does something the other two games do not. There is an AI assistant here who talks throughout, much more present than the 2 points DJ, and close to the point of getting annoying at times, but it's part of the game's DNA, and it does bring character. It just about stays on the right side of the line. There are also more story interruptions. These can be calls from characters or chapter-specific arrivals who either advance the plot or drop emergency patients on you. None of it changes what a session actually is, though. There is also an additional mechanic in this game, catching or removing space bugs in the hospital for certain resource types. It is a slightly artificial wrinkle, and you will know it is there, but it does not intrude on the main loop. Re-entry is similar to Theme Hospital, with one hospital at a time, and you pick it up where you left it. The more complex the hospital, of course, the more you'll need to reorient, which is true of all three games at a certain point. This is the same switched-on territory as the other two. If Theme Hospital was your game, you now have three options. The original still holds. Play it, enjoy it, and move on when the DOS-box interface starts to grate. 2 Point Hospital then takes the same recipe, adds flexibility and lets you manage your time across hospitals as you see fit. And Galacticare takes you into space in 2024, structures each hospital as a contained challenge closer to Theme Hospital, and runs a story throughout the campaign, light enough not to get in the way, but present enough to give it its own character. All three are switched-on games, not Tired Tuesday territory. You need to be ready to think, and upwards of an hour to 90 minutes to feel like you've made meaningful progress. Re-entry works slightly differently across the three, with Theme Hospital and Galacticare broadly similar, one hospital at a time, and you pick it up where you left it. 2 Point has more moving parts. If you have several hospitals on the go, returning after a break might mean a brief dip into a couple before you settle, but you are never required to deal with more than one at a time, and if you have left a fresh hospital to start, coming back is as clean as any of them. All three games are definitely worth a session. The original to see where it comes from, 2 Point if you want the most complete and replayable version of the idea, and Galacticare if you want the freshest take, the most recent of the three, set in space, and the one with the story running through it. So the original question was whether the feeling from Theme Hospital survived. It did, and twice over. Whichever version fits your session, get the conditions right, and it will earn it.